Welcome to another episode of Out from the Horrorbox. I'm your beach-loving host, Dom, and in this episode we take a look at the 1975 thriller film directed by Steven Spielberg, based on the 1974 novel by Peter Benchle. When a massive killer shark unleashes chaos on a beach community off Long Island, it's up to the local police chief, a marine biologist, and an old seafarer to hunt down the beast. This is Jaws. Somewhere on Amity Island, a small community whose primary business is its beaches, after a rash of shark attacks, the new police chief tries to close the beaches to swimmers, but is outvoted by the mayor and several local business people. He backs down, and that weekend, a young boy is killed. The dead boy's mother puts out a bounty on the shark, and Amity is soon swamped with amateur hunters and fishermen hoping to cash in on the reward. A local fisherman with much experience hunting sharks offers to hunt down the creature for a hefty fee. Soon, an oceanographer joins the chief and fishermen in hunting the great white shark at sea. Jaws is a classic and the first summer blockbuster, premiering at a time when such a wide release and massive box office was not seen before, but has been overtaken in the last 50 years. Let's see if we will need a bigger boat after diving into Jaws. Author of the novel Jaws, Peter Benchle's fascination with sharks began in childhood. Nurtured by fishing trips with his father off of Nantucket, for years he toyed with the idea of a story about a relentless shark terrorizing a coastal community, a concept that crystallized after he read about Frank Mundus's 1964 capture of a 4,550-pound great white near Montauk, New York. By 1971, Benchle was a struggling freelance journalist, barely making ends meet while supporting his wife and children. His literary agent arranged routine meetings with publishing house editors, hoping to sell one of Benchle's ideas. During one such meeting with Doubleday editor Thomas Congdon, Benchle pitched several nonfiction concepts that failed to excite the editor. However, when Benchle mentioned his long gestating shark novel, Congdon's interest was immediately piqued. The editor requested an outline, and Benchle sent a single typed page that so impressed Congdon, he advanced the writer 1,000 to produce the first 100 pages. These initial chapters, which would become the novel's gripping opening, earned Benchle a total advance of 7,500, which is about 58,000 today, which is actually pretty good for a novel. Doubleday saw potential in Benchle, considering him an amateur shark expert due to his research, including books like Cousteau's The Shark, Splendid Savage of the Sea, and documentaries like Blue Water, White Death. But Benchle procrastinated until his agent warned he'd have to repay the advance if he didn't deliver. His rush first draft, deemed too comedic by Congdon, was scrapped except for the first 5 pages, which set the novel's tone. Rewrites followed with Congdon's dictating changes, including altering a marital sex scene between Brody and his wife, Ellen, to one between Ellen and Hooper, deeming the original too wholesome for the thriller. Benchle wrote in a makeshift office above a New Jersey furnace company in winter and a converted Connecticut turkey coop in summer. After 18 months of revisions, he submitted the untitled manuscript in January 1973. Though Benchle doubted his prospects, Congdon recognized its potential, securing placements with the Book of the Month Club, which sanitized adult content, and negotiating a strategic release. Hardcover in February 1974, followed by book clubs and a paperback campaign. Bantam bought paperback rights for a staggering $575,000, and the novel exploded. Spielberg and producers Zanuck and Brown allegedly turbocharged early sales by purchasing hundreds of copies for influencers, but the book's success was undeniable. The hardcover spent 44 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list, peaking at number 2, while the paperback sold 5.5 million copies before the 1975 film's release, eventually reaching 9.5 million domestically and 20 million worldwide. The phenomenon even landed Benchle a spot on ABC's The American Sportsman, Swimming with Sharks in Australia, the first of many nature programs he'd host. Jaws wasn't just a hit. It became a cultural landmark, proving Benchle's instinct for terror. The journey of Jaws from page to screen began with producers Richard D. Zanuck and David Brown when they discovered Peter Benchle's unpublished novel in 1973. Brown first encountered the story through a brief but glowing recommendation in Cosmopolitan, edited by his wife Helen Gurley Brown, where the magazine's book editor noted it might make a good movie. Both producers devoured the book in one night and were immediately convinced of its cinematic potential, purchasing the film rights for $175,000, which was roughly about 1.24 or 1.24 million today, before the novel even hit shelves, which is kind of amazing. Just think about that. Like, they bought it for like all that, and even before it even came out. Brown later admitted that had they reread it or read it twice, they might have reconsidered, realizing the immense technical challenges of bringing the shark to life. Initially, Zanuck and Brown considered veteran director John Sturges, director of The Old Man and the Sea, for the project before offering it to Dick Richards. However, Richards' persistent mischaracterization of the shark as a whale led to a swift dismissal, which is kind of funny that he just kept saying, "It's a whale." Enter 26-year-old Steven Spielberg, fresh off directing The Sugarland Express for the producers, spotting the galleys of Jaws in their office. Spielberg was instantly captivated, drawing parallels between the shark and the relentless truck from his TV movie Duel, both leviathans targeting every man. By June 1973, he was attached to direct, though he briefly hesitated, fearing typecasting as a truck and shark director. Brown persuaded him to stay, assuring him creative freedom afterward. Benchle was contracted to write the first draft, delivering 3 iterations before declaring himself written out. His scripts retained the novel's core mechanics, particularly the oceanic sequences, but lacked character depth. One major change, at Spielberg's suggestion, was eliminating Ellen Brody's affair with Hooper to preserve the Orca trio's camaraderie. Dissatisfied with Benchle's drafts, Spielberg sought rewrites from multiple writers, including John Byram and Columbo creators William Link and Richard Levinson, who both declined. Uncredited help came from playwright Howard Sackler, who sharpened the characters, nobly giving Brody a fear of water to heighten tension. The script truly found its voice when Spielberg enlisted Carl Gottlieb, the Odd Couple writer-actor, hired initially for a 1-week dialogue polish. Gottlieb ended up overhauling the screenplay during production, often finalizing scenes the night before filming. Improvisations during cast dinners and on set, like Roy Scheider's iconic "You're Gonna Need a Bigger Boat," became key moments. John Milius contributed a Quint's legendary USS Indianapolis monologue, though its authorship remains debated. Spielberg called it a collaboration between Sackler, Milius, and Robert Shaw, who refined it, when Gottlieb credited Shaw primarily. Universal launched a groundbreaking $1.8 million marketing campaign, including the first heavy use of TV spots, $700,000 worth, airing relentlessly before the June 1975 premiere, which is crazy because it's like that's all studios do now. Well, it may be changing the way we do big blockbusters. I think it's shifted since the advent of a lot of things over the last 50 years. But for the long time, that was the standard. You just blasted out TV spots. You blasted out advertisements everywhere, and that's how you did it to get people to come in. The studio and Bantam Books synergized their efforts using Roger Castell's haunting paperback cover of the shark ascending towards the swimmer as the film's poster. Seininger Advertising spent months perfecting the image, realizing only an underbelly view of the shark's teeth evoked true terror. Merchandising reached unprecedented levels with Jaws-themed products flooding the market. T-shirts, beach towels, shark tooth necklaces, and even an Ideal Toy Company game where players plucked items from a mechanical shark's maw. The film's release was strategically tied to Benchle's paperback, with the author and producers promoting both on talk shows. John Williams' minimalist score and Castell's artwork became indelible symbols of the film's menace. Spielberg's insistence on an explosive finale, replacing the novel's protracted shark death with a scuba tank climax, epitomized his instinct for crowd-pleasing spectacle. The film's 27 original scenes, absent from the book, and Gottlieb's humor humanized the story, balancing terror with wit. By the time Jaws premiered, it wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural event, redefining summer blockbusters and proving the power of cross-platform marketing. The collaboration between Benchle's premise, Spielberg's vision, and a team of writers' polish transformed a pulp thriller into a timeless masterpiece. So let's dip our feet into the water and look at Jaws.
There is a creature alive today who has survived millions of years of evolution without change, without passion, and without logic. It lives to kill. A mindless eating machine. It will attack and devour anything. It is as if God created the devil and gave him jaws. This is Universal's extraordinary motion picture version of Peter Benchle's best-selling novel, Jaws.
I just found out that a girl got killed here last week, and you knew it. You knew there was a shark out there. You knew it was dangerous, but you let people go swimming anyway. Did you see that?
It's all psychological. You yell barracuda. Everybody says, huh? What? You yell shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
Is it true that most people get attacked by sharks in 3 feet of water, about 10 feet from the beach?
Yeah. What we are dealing with here is a perfect engine, an eating machine.
We're not only going to have to close the beach, we're going to have to hire somebody to kill the shark.
Bad fish. But I'll catch him and kill him.
Did you hear your father? Out of the water now!
This shark, swallow you whole. You're gonna need a bigger boat.
That's a 20-footer.
25. 3 tons of them.
Hurry up, he's coming straight for us. Don't screw it up now. Don't wait for me. Now! Shoot! Watch your tail! Give him room! I can't! He's trying to run! Oh! Quick! I can't hold it! Hurry! Break it up! Brody! Everybody out of the water!
None of man's fantasies of evil can compare with the reality of Jaws. Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, Jaws. See it before you go swimming.
In the coastal town of Amity Island, New England, a young woman is attacked and dragged underwater during a late-night swim. The next morning, her mangled remains wash ashore. The coroner rules it a shark attack, prompting Police Chief Martin Brody, played by Roy Scheider, to close the beaches. However, Mayor Larry Vaughn, played by Murray Hamilton, fearing economic disaster during the tourist season, pressures the coroner to change the ruling to a boating accident. Brody reluctantly accepts this until another shark attack claims the life of young Alex Kintner, played by Jeffrey Voorhees, at a crowded beach. A $3,000 bounty is offered for the shark, sparking a frenzy among amateur hunters. The eccentric shark fisherman Quint, played by Robert Shaw, offers his services for $10,000, while marine biologist Matt Hooper, played by Richard Dreyfuss, confirms the killer is an abnormally large shark after examining the first victim's remains. When local fishermen catch a tiger shark, Vaughn declares the beach is safe. Hooper, unconvinced, dissects it and finds no human remains, proving the real killer is still out there. That night, Hooper and Brody discover the wrecked boat of a missing fisherman, Ben Gardner. Hooper dives down and finds a massive shark tooth lodged in the hull, but drops it in shock after spotting Gardner's severed head. Vaughn dismisses their warnings about a great white and refuses to close the beaches, opting instead for tighter safety measures. On the 4th of July weekend, tourists walk to the shore. The shark slips into the lagoon, killing a boater and nearly killing Brody's son, Michael, who is hospitalized in shock. Racked with guilt, Vaughn finally agrees to hire Quint. Despite tensions between Quint and Hooper, and Brody's own fear of the ocean, the trio sets out on Quint's boat, the Orca. As Brody lays a chum line, the massive shark surfaces behind them. Quint estimates it at 25 feet and 3 tons, harpooning it with a buoy attached line, but the shark drags the buoy underwater and vanishes. That night, Quint and Hooper drunkenly bond over their scars. Quint reveals one is a removed tattoo, recounting his survival of the USS Indianapolis sinking, where sharks devoured hundreds of sailors. The shark returns, ramming the Orca and disabling the engine. After a frantic night of repairs, Brody tries calling the Coast Guard, but Quint, obsessed with killing the shark alone, smashes the radio. After a prolonged chase, Quint harpoons the shark again, but this time the beast drags the boat backwards, flooding the deck. Just as Quint prepares to cut the line, the cleats snap off. The shark remains tethered to the buoys, and Quint attempts to lure it into shallow water until the damaged engine fails. With the Orca sinking, they resort to a desperate plan. Hooper enters a shark-proof cage to inject the shark with poison, but the shark crushes the cage, forcing Hooper to flee to the ocean floor. The shark then leaps onto the boat, devouring Quint. Trapped, Brody jams a scuba tank into the shark's mouth, climbs the crow's nest, and shoots the tank with a rifle. The explosion obliterates the shark. Hooper resurfaces, and the 2 survivors paddle to shore, using the remaining buoys. Now let's move on to some trivia about the film Jaws and learn some things about the behind the scenes, the production, and the actors. When composer John Williams originally played the score for director Steven Spielberg, Spielberg laughed and said, "That's funny, John, really, but what did you really have in mind for the theme of Jaws?" Spielberg later stated that without Williams' score, the movie would only have been half as successful, and according to Williams, it jump-started his career, which is correct and right, and it's awesome that, like, this is what got him jump-started into his career, because he's had an amazing career. He came up with all the music for Star Wars, I think, except until, I don't even, did he do the last 2? I don't know. I know he did at least like The Force Awakens. I know he came back for that, but he's had an incredible career, and this score is amazing. It's so and like the simplicity of like for the shark, and that build of tension of the da 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 that just building of that it just creates so much tension in itself and works so well for this film. And I mean, it works well for everything, for a lot of things for that matter. But yeah, like it's just crazy that like I think he'd been working before this, but like yeah, like it really helped that this is the score that like that got him like more praise and more well known and more work beyond this. Though respected as an actor, Robert Shaw's trouble with alcohol was a frequent source of tension during filming. In later interviews, Roy Scheider described his co-star as a perfect gentleman whenever he was sober. All he needed was one drink, and then he turned into a competitive son of a bitch. According to Carl Gottlieb's book, The Jaws Log, Shaw was having a drink between takes and announced, "I wish I could quit drinking." To the surprise and horror of the crew, Richard Dreyfuss grabbed Shaw's glass and tossed it into the ocean, much to Shaw's chagrin. Shaw allegedly bullied Dreyfuss for the rest of the shoot, offering $1,000 to climb the 70-foot mast and jump into the ocean, calling Dreyfuss a coward whenever he refused. On one day, Shaw sprayed him with a fire hose, causing an enraged Dreyfuss to storm off, saying, "That's it. I don't want to work with you anymore. Go fuck yourself." When it came time to shoot the famous USS Indianapolis scene, Shaw attempted to do the monologue while intoxicated, as it called for the men to be drinking late at night. Nothing in the take could be used. A remorseful Shaw called Steven Spielberg late that night and asked if he could have another try. The next day of shooting, Shaw's electrifying performance was done in one take. That's crazy too, because like he is a really good actor, and that one scene with when he just talks about like, and he does it in one take that's fucking crazy. But that's crazy that like he just was like such an alcoholic. It reminds me of my friend. He's just like he's such a good filmmaker, but for the longest time, all he did was like drink, and he's an alcoholic, and I think that hindered him for a while. I mean, it didn't hinder him from getting any work, really per se. I think it just kind of hindered him from doing more of his own stuff, because a lot of the time he spent was just drinking away, and it just kind of sucks what alcoholism does. But yeah, no, like it makes you like look at these scenes a lot more differently too, because it's like these two people hate each other. They just absolutely refuse to be around each other, but then they have to put their these differences aside, and they have to come together for these scenes and act and work along each other. And I think it works when the scenes call for them to be in disagreement, especially, and you can just see like that's real. That's really him like disagreeing with him. Richard Dreyfuss with Robert Shaw, or Robert Shaw with Richard Dreyfuss, which is either way you want to put it. The story that Quint tells about his experience aboard a sinking cruiser is a fictionalized version of the actual World War II Portland-class cruiser, the USS Indianapolis. Of the 1,196 crewmen aboard, only 316 survived, while 300 died during the sinking and the other 579 dying from exposure, dehydration, drinking salt water, and some from shark attacks. The majority of the dialogue in the film was largely written by Robert Shaw. The most major difference between Quint's account and the actual event was the date of the sinking, mentioned in the film as June 29th, 1945, while the ship was actually sunk over a month later on July 30th. And if you have not, which I don't think a lot of people have, looked into the sinking of the Indianapolis, I learned about it through, I mean, obviously I had heard the speech in Jaws before from Robert Shaw. But then a podcast called Last Podcast, of anyone out there who's a fan like I am, they did an episode on this, on the sinking of the USS Indianapolis. And I'll tell you, it's probably, I think it's one of the only, I mean, it's one episode that just stuck in my mind forever. And it's honestly one of the most disturbing things I think I've ever heard. And it's just like, I do not wish to ever be in a situation like that, because from what he says in it is already enough for you to like, whoa, that's messed up. But when you learn just more that happened, like from the survivors of it and everything, it's just, oh my God! Even just thinking about it just gives me the willies. It's like, it's more than just that, of just like dehydration, exposure, like people were, like straining to stay afloat. And then like when the sharks would come and you could hear them and you could hear the people just yelling and screaming and crying, and then there's nothing you could do. And then they talked about how pitch black, the nights were, and having to be out there in the middle of the ocean. And then finally, like when they were finally discovered, because at one point they were on a mission towards, I forgot exactly where, but they turned around at a point, and then that's when it got hit by I forgot, it was like some like Japanese, I forgot, like maybe like a sub or something. I don't think it was a sub. I'm maybe completely wrong, but I know maybe it was like another ship or something. But basically, it got hit by and that's why it sank. So it wasn't in the place where everyone thought it was supposed to be. So they were looking in the wrong place, and then when they finally did discover them, it's just like when you hear, because you're sitting there in salt water, and they just, oh God, they just describe like when like they pulled them out, like some of them they had to like, you have to gently take them out of the water because of like from sitting in the water for so long. Like some of them, their skin just like slid off. It's horrible. Like that's like it always just like burned into my mind. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, this is terrible. And then like people were just like, there'd be like dead bodies just floating next to them because there's nothing there's nothing you can do. And then like, God, just like the sharks and everything is crazy. It's a crazy story, and it's honestly, I think more people should know about it. But yeah, go definitely check out that episode if you dare to listen to it, to hear just how disturbing it is. The production of Jaws faced one monumental obstacle: the mechanical shark, affectionately named Bruce after Spielberg's lawyer. Were plagued with constant malfunctions. The three prop sharks, each designed for different shots, suffered a cascade of technical failures. Saltwater corrosion damaged pneumatic hoses, water resistance fractured internal frames, and electrolysis ate away the skin. Even the shark's non-absorbent neoprene foam betrayed the crew, soaking up seawater during the first test and causing the models to bloat grotesquely. The sea sled shark, intended for underwater shots, became repeatedly ensnared in seaweed, further delaying an already grueling shoot. Faced with these setbacks, Spielberg was forced to rethink his approach. Rather than relying on visible shark attacks, he embraced suspense through implication, a decision that ultimately heightened the film's terror. The shark's presence is often suggested through John Williams' iconic score, point of view shots, or the ominous drift of yellow barrels tracking its movement. This indirect approach, born of necessity, became one of the film's most effective techniques, proving that what the audience doesn't see can be far more frightening than what they do. Spielberg later admitted that if the sharks had worked as intended, Jaws might have been a straightforward creature feature. Instead, the malfunctions pushed him to craft a leaner, more Hitchcockian thriller, transforming a production nightmare into a cinematic masterclass in suspense. And yes, and that's what they always bring up as an example of like less is more, because yeah, like you don't have to see the shark for it to be this black cloud that just hovers over, and you just feel from everything this palpable, like it's there, it's killing people, and that's what like an animal would do. It wouldn't be seen, it wouldn't be out in the open for you to, it'd be stealthy, it'd be trying to hide, it'd be attacking when it can, going when it can, doing everything it needed to do to not be caught. And that's what I love about like this malfunction happened to create like just such a suspenseful film, a film that just builds this kind of great like air about like this menace that's in the water that you can't see. You know it's there, and it can be anywhere because you're in this boat, which is just for humans, you know, like it's a small space for you to be in this vast ocean where that's their home. You're playing in their home. You're coming to where they live, and they're you know they know that area to the the back of the back of their fin. Like they like you're in their hunting ground. You're coming to it, and you know the less we saw, and the more like it builds towards that ending too, of actually seeing it. Because yeah, like you could have shown it all you wanted, but I don't think it would have been as as iconic as and I mean we do that nowadays. It's like the devil you don't see is worse than, you know, the devil you do, because like you're like we always say, and like your mind can always come up with something scarier than what we can create for you on screen. Preview audiences didn't scream when the head of the shark victim appeared in the hole in the bottom of the boat. The first big response was for the sharks appearing when Brody was chumming. Director Steven Spielberg says that he got greedy and wanted a scream from the earlier sequence. He reshot the scene in editor Verna Field's swimming pool numerous ways to finesse the moment. He then found that the chumming scene got less of a scream, which he eventually realized was because the audience didn't trust him and was wary about what might come next. And honestly, I'll just leave it with this. That scene is very effective because I was not like the very first time I saw it. I watched Jaws like all the way through. You know, growing up, you just see it here and there, pieces. I didn't know that was gonna come. Honestly, I did not know that was gonna come out of the boat when that scene. And honestly, it scared the shit out of me. Like I got so scared when I saw that for the first time, because you know I'm sitting here, you know, watching it because I'm like I want to watch Jaws. You know, I want to see what everyone's talking about, and you know I'm sitting there, and then all of a sudden, boom, this head just comes out of nowhere, and it really got me. Like that's one of the only times that like actually like a jump scare is like, I mean jump scares will get you every once in a while, but like that one really got me really good. Well, now we get into my final thoughts on the film Jaws. So I just remember growing up with Jaws. I mean, it's like I said, it's one of those ones where like it was on every once in a while, especially like around this time of the year. Right now being like 4th of July, obviously because it's also set around there, during the summer, but never really like sitting down and watching it. Watching it, I just obviously like the parts about like the with the beaches and then the ending, and it's kind of like one of those things where in the pop culture, like you knew what it was, like if you haven't seen Star Wars, you still like know like a lot of the big moments from Star Wars because it's such a like influence on the pop culture that like you know of it. And so it wasn't until like later that I sat down and was like, yeah, I guess I'll give it a try. I'll watch it. I want to see what this is really about. It was during that time when I was like trying to go back and watch as much of like the bigger movies that I hadn't seen before from the past. I'm trying to like catch up like pop culturally wise, I guess. And I just remember like putting it in, and I think I did I rent this because this was when I had Netflix. When I have Netflix to begin with, it was when they would send you the discs through the mail, and yeah, that's how you basically rented that way. And the streaming part of it was like an additional thing that they like didn't really like heavily advertise because like I mean streaming back then was terrible. Like it had to buffer, it had to download, and download speeds were terrible. But anyways, I think I might have rented this one through there, and I watched it, and yeah, like it's a classic for a reason because it's amazing. Like the infamous like that trombone shot where it's like zooming in on his face while like the background like zooms out or whatever, and it just gives you that crazy effect and like it gives you that weird feeling. Perfect. It captures it exactly how you'd think it would. Um, the acting is amazing. Roy Scheider is great. Robert Shaw, man, that guy, he's an amazing actor. Especially when he's like doll's eyes, and he's like giving like the speech about the Indianapolis, which I never knew was a real thing until later. Like I didn't know that really happened, and when I found out that it happened and I learned about it, I was like, Jesus, goddamn Christ, that's crazy that this really happened. And then Richard Dreyfuss. It made me really appreciate Richard Dreyfuss because I'd only really seen him in a few things like American Graffiti, and I'm trying to remember the Richard Dreyfuss movie, whatever. Anyways, but yeah, like he great, like it hits all the great beats. It doesn't. I feel like it doesn't overstay itself with the beaches and like the part with all the like the human characters there. Doesn't get into like an entanglement of too much of like the businesses and like why they want to keep the beach open, or like from what I feel like the novel probably did all that and kind of lingered on like a lot of this other stuff that was not necessary to the plot if it's a movie, obviously. And so the like that's what I think is great about the writing for this too. Is like they really took such a like because I didn't know it was a novel until later either. I think most people when they find out that it was a novel are like kind of shocked. But yeah, I'd like to take such a especially like a book that was becoming such a bestseller the year before, taking all that the material and then turning it into what we get with the film, and Spielberg. You know what? I'm not a huge Steven Spielberg like writer. Like, oh man, like I mean, I appreciate him as a director. I think he is really good. He's got some really good like great films like this one, Jurassic Park, E.T., the Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You know, they're like these classic films that are just like, yeah, see, like I don't think anyone else would be able to have done it except for him. I do think that he does get a little, you know, overpraised sometimes, especially when, you know, he was all for like not allowing like streaming, and like he took a long time to switch from film to. I remember it was a big deal when he switched from film, like like physical film, to digital. It took him a long time to switch over. Like George Lucas, one of his best friends, you know, he switched over to digital like years before everyone else. Like he hopped on the digital bandwagon years before everyone else. But I think it's because he saw the potential of like what you could do with digital. Even though in its infancy it was really primitive and like kind of hard to do, but I think he saw that like, oh, in the future we're going to be able to do so much with this that it's gonna make film obsolete. But that doesn't mean film is obsolete. I think when film is still used, it looks amazing. I mean, there's nothing that can beat film. Film looks great, and I think some cameras that can mimic it, you know, I'm probably going off on a full tangent, but yeah, no, getting into why it's so good is especially like it builds the tension so well with, and I think it's due to like that the mechanical shark not working, you know, the acting, and then like that suspense of like the score too helps to build with that POV shot, and just like I said, like it to me it did scare me at one point with the head. I mean, it's obviously not honestly, I think it's more of like a popcorn scary movie. You know what I mean? Like that. Like it's not really like a scary movie. It's not really gonna scare you. Although it did frighten a lot of people into not going into like the water for a while, which is crazy when you think about like it's. I think it's just mainly also because of years of like the different horror that we've gotten and how things. It's like, yeah, you know what? That is kind of terrifying. A shark killing people, but we know now too, like a shark isn't really gonna attack you. I mean, for the most part, you have a pretty good chance of like being in the water with a shark and it not doing anything. But there's way more messed up things that could happen in the water. That's not just the shark killing you. And that's why I think, you know, it's not as scary as, but I think it's more of a suspenseful feature. Like it's more suspense in the way with the music and that like POV shot. And I think, you know, like getting the shark in the end too when it explodes, pretty amazing. Spielberg knew what he was doing, and that's why I would say 5 stars. The first summer blockbuster, and honestly, it knocks it out of the park. It's such a great film. I love it. It's put so well together, just all across the board. It's so good. Did Jaws scare you? Do you think it's one of Spielberg's best? Can you believe Jaws is 50 years old? I mean, it was old when I was young. We want to thank you all for listening, and if you like what you hear, please subscribe to get every new episode downloaded. Do you have any personal or fictional, paranormal, supernatural, or unexplainable stories? We would love to read them on the podcast. Please send your stories, recommendations, or anything else to horrorboxpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to show more support, you can follow our socials on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, or check out our YouTube channel, all at Horrorbox Podcast on all sites. Also, you can buy me a coffee at coffee.com/horrorboxpodcast. It really helps out. Until next time, stay out of the water. This is Dom, signing off from the Horror Box.
You heard him. Slow ahead. Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this shit.